everyone. This is Mary from Mary's Home Sweet Home Creations, and I'm here today to show you some techniques or some tips on making meatloaf and potato casserole. There are many things that you can alternate or substitute for in these recipes because you want to cook what your family's going to eat. So we eat meatloaf pretty often because it's inexpensive and it can last you for a few days. If you have leftovers, you eat it for lunch or dinner the next day. You can have leftovers. Meatloaf sandwiches, a lot of people like those. Let's see, there's also, but the potato casserole, you can use that again the next day or use it for breakfast. It's good for breakfast with some eggs or pancakes, waffles, anything like that. And so these meals can be last you for a few days. So it is economic in that way. So you can save money making these kind of meals that you can make a bigger portion of and then eat for a couple days after. My camera's kind of tippy-toppy here. I also wanted to show you how to cut this onion in a different way than I normally do. I watched someone do it and I was like, that's so awesome. Why didn't I learn that years ago, right? Because that is anything that makes it simple. And since I have sharp knives now, which I just recently got these sharp knives, I have to be very careful of cutting my fingers. I'm going to start with the meatloaf, showing you what the ingredients are going to be, and also showing you how to cut this onion in the new way that I learned. And then I'm going to be putting my meatloaf in it's actually a glass pie plate, so you can make your meatloaf any shape you want. A lot of times if I have a very big one, I'll make a loaf in a pan. I've done it inside a loaf pan. It doesn't get as brown in that, so I like it better in a pan that's getting browned all over. So I'm going to be making mine round today in that pie pan. And then the potato casserole, you can adjust the size that you're making it. The ones that I'm making are, this one's going to be a large one. I'm using 2 bags of potatoes to do it. You can make a smaller one with 1 bag of potatoes, and I'll show you what those look like over there. But I'm going to start with the meatloaf first, and then we'll move over to the potato casserole. Okay, so let me put this down so you can see. Okay, so my onion, that's not showing very good. Okay, I'm going to move it back here. Sorry, still learning to adjust these things in this kitchen. Okay, so there is the onion, and I have a half an onion here. So when you peel your onion, okay, this was what I was just watched. She took her onion and she cut it in half. Okay, then you peel off the outside of it, but you leave that end of it. See the end? And that gives you something to hold on to. See? I also have a little bit of nails, so sometimes I use my nails to hang on to that onion. Because you do not want this onion slipping while you're cutting it, and then you will definitely cut your fingers. So, if you leave that little tail on there, we'll try it out here. We're going to cut I'm going to get on this side so you can see better. Okay. So we're going to cut this, slice it up, and this is for the meatloaf. So you kind of, depends on how much onion you like. If you like to have big chunks or smaller chunks in there. I don't like them too big. And then they mix into the meat better if they're not huge. If you have really big ones, you get a big chunk of onion in your meatloaf. Sometimes you like onions, but you don't like the whole onion in there. So, and if your family doesn't like onions, then you don't have to put the onion in. Okay? And so once they're sliced like that, then I'm going to go this way and just chop them from one end to the other. Kind of like a 1/2 inch slices, okay? And because they're all in rings, now your pieces should be pretty small. You could probably go one more way if you really want to make sure that they're small enough. And work your way back through. Okay, now this is kind of a small cutting board for as much onion as I have here, but I'm thinking it was a 1/2 onion, but it was a pretty good sized onion, so just slipped out of there a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw that in here, slide it right off of there. Oh, got a few on the floor. Now, you do not want your dog eating the onion. That is one thing that the dogs should not eat. And since my dog loves to eat everything, but I think she knows about onions because she doesn't really like them. Okay, so now that we have our onion in our mixer, I do mine in a mixer. Just because I don't mind putting my hand in the meat, but your hand can get very cold if your meat, your meat will be cold because you took it out of the refrigerator. I took this out of the freezer and thawed it for a day, and then I'm using it. But if you have fresh meat or thawed out meat, it's going to be cold. So it's just easier to use your mixer. And I forgot to get out my paddle because you need the paddle to do this one. If you have a meat hook, you can use that too, but I rarely use that one because this works just as well. Okay, so now I have my meat and my onions. So I have a 1/2 onion and I have about 1.5 pounds of hamburger. Okay, so now I'm going to add some eggs to that. Let me lift this up a little. And you want your eggs to be a little bit warm. They're easier to break. So that's 1 egg. There's 2 eggs. There is 3 eggs. I'm going to put 4 eggs in this just to make it a little more moist because my husband likes it that way. And you don't want it to dry out too much because especially if you're going to be making a meatloaf sandwich or using it for leftovers the next day, you don't want it to be so dry that nobody wants it again. So 4 eggs and 1.5 pounds of the hamburger and that 1/2 onion. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and put in our spices. So I use the Italian style breadcrumbs. I use that for my meatballs. I use it Swedish meatballs, sweet and sour meatballs. For the meatloaf, remember when I made sweet and sour meatballs, I told you basically same recipe except you're using different spices. In the meatloaf, I add a little more breadcrumbs than I do in the meatballs because the meatballs are small and they can dry out. So I use a little less. So that was about a cup of breadcrumbs. Okay, then I just add a little bit of garlic, salt, and I just shake about 3 shakies in there, which is about a teaspoon. And then this is the black pepper. And black pepper, that is to taste, with the garlic salt too. Some people like more pepper than others. Some like more salt than others. But salt is something that when you get older, you try to not put as much in because it's bad for you hot, which that's me. I have heart stuff. Okay, so then we have Italian. We have the Italian spice. Now, some people like to use fresh herbs, which is awesome if you have them. Some people like to mix their own in. This one is pretty convenient because I'll tell you what's in here. It has the oregano, marjoram, thyme, basil, rosemary, and sage. So all the Italian style herbs are in here. So when you buy this, you can use this for lots of things. Your spaghetti, for your meatloaf, you could add it to your Swedish meatballs. You can add it to a roast. Lots of things you can use that, and it's all there. So if you're not sure about spices or what to put in things, the Italian blend one is pretty easy and nice for this type of meatloaf. Okay, so I used to put soy sauce in here just to add moisture, but the soy sauce has a lot of salt in it. So I am going to put the barbecue sauce in just to give it a little moisture and a little more spice to the flavor. Okay. Now some people will put barbecue sauce on top of the meatloaf, and some will put ketchup or tomato paste on top. There's lots of different versions of meatloaf like that. My mom used to put tomato paste on top. I've put ketchup on there before, but this time I'm going to be using, I'm just going to bake it, and then we can add what we want at the end. Okay, so I'm going to mix this all up, and then I'll put it in the pan, and I'll show you how to make the potato casserole. Okay, I'm back, and we are going to move to this side of the kitchen. I'm gonna show you the potato casserole, and I also wanted to tell you that if you don't have the frozen potatoes, these are hash brown Southern style. They're the cube potatoes, but you could also use the shredded potatoes. The frozen shredded potatoes. If you make it with fresh potatoes, you're going to have to really make sure you don't have a lot of moisture, because the fresh potato is going to have a lot of moisture in there. That's going to you're going to have to compensate for. But so I usually use the frozen ones. The diced ones are the ones that are the recipe, but if you have frozen hash browns, you can use those too. I've done it, and it's just as good. It's just a different texture with those. Okay, and then I'm going to turn this so you can see what we're using. So there we go. Okay, so I used 2 bags of this one, and they are 2 pounds each, so it's 4 pounds of the frozen diced potatoes. So this is going to be a pretty good size one, so you can feed a lot of people, or you can eat it for a couple days or for breakfast. Some people, when they make it for a breakfast, they add some eggs and sausage or bacon in there. Okay, this is corn flakes. Okay, the corn flakes, we put 2 cups of corn flakes over the very top, and we melt the butter. I melt a cube of butter and mix it in with the 2 cups of corn flakes, and then I put that right on top. And that goes in the oven and it browns. Okay, it will brown on top. Okay, this sour creamer here is 14 ounces, and you usually put 2 cups of sour cream in. But this one is exactly 14 ounces. 2 cups would be 16 ounces. So I'm just going to use this one, and it'll just be a little bit short. These are actually pretty handy. These are the squeezy ones. So if you like sour cream for other types of things like tacos, it shows you your tacos, or you like to make a dip out of it, or just squeeze it on your burrito. These are pretty handy little things. Okay. And then we're going to put a little pepper in there. I already sprayed the pan with Pam. You can use just any oil to just keep it from sticking so much. It does help with doing the dishes. Salt and the chives that I've used before for my mother-in-law's garden. Okay, there's one other thing. These are the potatoes. I took them out already. Okay, if they've been in the freezer for a while, they get kind of stuck together. So you need to let them thaw out just a little, enough to break them apart. And here is the meatloaf that I made in the round pie pan, so that it will fit in the oven. That's kind of why I did it. Ooh, it's rolling around. It'll fit in the oven next to the casserole dish. Okay, so I want to cook them together because the casserole will take a while, and so will the meatloaf. Okay, there's one other thing that I didn't put there. I put cream of chicken in mine. Now, if you prefer cream of mushroom, then you could use that. A lot of people that I serve do not like mushrooms. I love them, but some of them don't. So I don't put it in this because they all love this casserole. So I want them to eat it and be able to eat it. So I'm not going to use the cream of mushroom. I use the cream of chicken. And I am going to put 2 of these in because it's a very big casserole. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and mix that all up in my bowl and put it in this pan that I already greased. Okay, and then I'm going to put it into the oven, and I'm going to bake that at 375. 375. And it's going to go in, going to let it warm up a little bit, and then I'll put the timer on. Once it gets to temperature, this is going to take probably 45 minutes, the potato casserole, to an hour, because it is so big. You kind of have to check, make sure it's really warmed all the way through. And then The meatloaf is going to take about the same, maybe a little less. I'll keep checking on it. It might only take 35, no, 45. The casserole could take a little longer, like an hour. You gotta make sure that's done because you want the potatoes soft and you want it hot all the way through. Okay. And we also put the cheese in. Boy, I'm forgetting things today again. This is a very important ingredient also, the cheese. Okay, so this is that cheese that I used for so many things. I use this cheese. It's fast, it's economical, and it covers a lot of bases. So, as a working mom or just a stay-at-home mom, or just if you're the dad and you cook in your house and you've worked all day or you've been with the kids all day, whatever the scenario, or you're just a grandma that's cooking for the whole family, this is really handy to have the big bag of cheese that's already shredded. Use it for burritos, use it for your eggs, scrambled eggs. I use it in the casserole, potato casserole, so many things. So it's a really nice, handy thing to have, and you don't have to think a lot about, what kind of cheese, unless you have a specific recipe. You really want ricotta, or you wanted gorgonzola in a salad. That's really good. But for these types of things, I always use this one. Okay, and I'm going to put 2 cups of that also in this. And then I'll come back and show you the results. Okay, I'm back. I wanted to show you that I put a little more than 2 cups of cornflakes with the cube of butter, just because I just had enough for that, and then so I used them all. And that is one of the favorites of everybody, is the top crusty, the browned cornflakes. But you don't want them to burn, so you have to cover the entire casserole with foil before you put it in. Okay. Unless you have one of those casserole dishes that's a cover that can go in the oven. I don't know. I've never had that, but I always use foil for that. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in. This one's definitely going to take 45 to an hour. It's a very big one, and it'll be a good thing to eat for a couple days. The meatloaf is going to go in, but it may be done before. So I'm actually going to put that in about 15 minutes, and then they'll be done together. So 15 minutes on the potatoes, and I'll put in the meatloaf and then reset the timer for 30. Check the meatloaf. If it's still not done, then they will both stand for another 15 minutes, which would be an hour. And with this, I would probably have some green beans and maybe some baked beans. I need to go to the store, get some more veggies, so I'm going to see what we got, and then I'll put it together for the rest of the meal. I'll come back and show you the end result, and I'll post some pictures also on my Facebook with the recipe. And I did want to read this little booklet that I have that my friend gave me, and it is: if I feed my faith, my fears will starve to death. Lord, we know that you are always with us and that we don't have to be afraid. Help us to keep our eyes on you. Amen. So if you're feeling fearful um, for any reason, a lot of us have started feeling more fearful over the year that or more that we've had COVID situation, and different things that are going on in the world are a little fearful for some people. If you have a faith, you just have to remember that God is watching over us, and that fear is false evidence appearing real, and that in the Bible it says, do not fear 365 times, one for every day of the year. So if you don't have that faith, you can start praying anyways, because eventually Jesus is always there knocking at your door. And when you acknowledge him, you start to form a relationship, and you start to see things around you that help you see the truth about Jesus and about the existence of God. And whatever faith that you have, you should practice it, especially when you're afraid. I also want to say to some moms that your Mother's Day is coming up soon, and that you should give yourself a break sometimes, and don't be afraid to celebrate being a mom. And if you're feeling angry or upset, which everyone gets there, it's okay to put yourself in a timeout, I call it. I used to teach parenting classes, and that was the one thing I told all the parents, that, if you feel yourself getting there, make sure your kids are in a safe spot. You can go take 5 minutes away, and you might have to lock yourself in the bathroom to do it, but it's a lot better than the alternative. And we have a lot of abuse in the world now with kids. And so when I taught parenting classes, we talked about timeouts and choices and consequences. And consequences should be something that has, something that is going to relate to what the situation is. And that helps. If you do timeouts, you should be giving 3 warnings and then a timeout. Timeout is a minute per age. So if they're, usually you don't start doing timeout till they're at least 2, 1.5 maybe. But you only put them in for as long as they are old. 2 minutes for a 2-year-old, 3 minutes for a 3-year-old, 4 minutes for a 4-year-old. And then they start learning choices and consequences. If you leave all your toys out and you don't clean them up, then the toys get put away for that day, or something reasonable. We don't want to get too radical with, we take your toys away forever. Okay, I had a parent like that, and it doesn't really work well. So just a little advice from one parent to another. Love your kids, the most important thing. So I'll be back to show you the end results. Love you, mommies. Love you, daddies. Love you, families. Okay, I'm going to be putting the meatloaf in now, and another 30-45 minutes, and then it should be done. Okay, I'm back, and everything is done. It did take about 55 minutes for the meatloaf and about an hour for the potato casserole, because I took the foil off for 5 minutes in there. So I'm going to show you, get you a little closer so you can see. Okay, so the potato casserole had the foil on till the last 5 minutes, so it would brown a little bit. And then the meatloaf, you can put your own barbecue sauce, ketchup, tomato paste, whatever you like on it. But since my husband wants something different than I am, I just leave it off, and then we both put our own on. Here is the recipe. I'm going to post it on the Facebook page for you. It's some of it's hard to read, but I put them both on the same board. 1.5 pounds of hamburger, half a onion, 3 eggs, 1/4 cup of barbecue sauce, 1 cup of breadcrumbs, pepper and salt, garlic salt to taste, whatever your family likes. If they don't like one of those, you can leave it out. 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning. And then the potato casserole is 4 pounds of frozen potatoes, 2 cups of sour cream. Am I getting that close? There. 2 cups of sour cream, 2 cups of cheese, 2 cans of cream chicken soup, salt and pepper to taste, whatever your family likes. Half a cup of butter, and the 2 cups of cornflakes that goes on the top, and chives if you have them. I'm lucky enough to have them in my freezer, so you can add other things to your meatloaf if you want to. My mother used to hide carrots and celery and all sorts of veggies in there sometimes. Potato casserole, you can use that for breakfast casserole, and you could add some eggs in there, sausage, bacon. So, and it's very, it's a big meal, so you can eat it more than one day. So that gives mom a break, or dad, whoever cooks in your house, or if you're going to be feeding a lot of people. So, all right. Well, you all have a lovely evening. Whatever you're going to be having tonight, you may not have time to make this meal, but maybe you'll try it. And I appreciate everyone coming and seeing me cook so that you can learn how to create your own meals, save money, save time, and spend more time with your family. Bye-bye.